To care for those who cared for us is one of the greatest honors. That is a quote from caregiver Tia Walker. Unfortunately, many in America are deprived of that honor, and worst of all, they aren't even able to see the one who cared for them. I believe elder abuse is a problem that is plaguing this country like a cancer. It happens in nursing homes, the court system, and especially in conservatorships. Opportunists will use dementia and other debilitating illnesses to manipulate, violate the person's own will, finances, and personal well being. This is no doubt a human rights violation and needs to be treated as such. All the way back in 2013, my mother was appointed power of attorney by my grandmother, and later would spend 2 years living with us. That was until May of 2021, when my cousin took her away and fed her lies about my mother, father, and two of my uncles. One of the first things she did was drive my grandmother to the bank with fraudulent documents. It was so clearly fraud that the bank immediately shut down the account. This should have been enough to have my cousin arrested and my grandmother brought back home. When officers were called to the scene, all they did was ask my grandmother if she was okay. Because she has dementia and couldn't understand what was happening, she didn't realize she'd been abducted. The police said that there was nothing they could do, and just like that, she was able to keep her isolated away from us. Right after this, my cousin was able to obtain PPOs against my mom, dad, and uncle. This ensured she could isolate my grandma. When my grandma was living with my cousin, she was neglected and incurred a UTI which became septic. Later on, when she was hospitalized for this UTI, my uncle went to go visit her in the hospital and was kicked out. All this abuse was enabled by probate court, who allowed her to continue living there and prevented us from seeing her or even talking to her on the phone. We were able to get the PPOs dropped, but it would still be another year before we'd be granted any visitation at all. My family's situation is not unique at all and happens all over the country. Legendary radio DJ and voice actor Casey Kasem was also isolated from his adult children and brother when his second wife took over while he was hospitalized. She hired security to prevent any family from his previous marriage from seeing him. By the time his daughter was able to see him, he was suffering from numerous affections as well as septic shock before passing away just 2 weeks later. His children later filed a lawsuit which received media attention, but there's still hundreds of cases that are unknown to the public. Powerful groups have successfully silenced many of these stories. Netflix put out an episode on their docu-series Dirty Money that detailed many of those cases. Unfortunately, that episode was pulled after a lawsuit was brought up against Netflix. The fact that $1 billion corporation can be silenced shows the level of corruption within this country. I believe that judges and court-appointed guardians are abusing their power for financial greed. They are supposed to protect the people. They are supposed to protect the people they serve, yet they enable elder abuse. Well, they take money from the families that are fighting. I believe that if laws aren't changed and abusers aren't held accountable, these crimes will continue. As I wrap up this speech, I want to remind everyone listening that one day they could be that elderly person being abused. And if they don't act now, that can happen. I just want everybody to know that. Thank you for listening.